Welcome to A Shelter in the Time of Storm. I'm glad that you could be with us today. My name is Roger Comstock. I'm the minister for the Morrison Church of Christ in Morrison, Tennessee. As you've heard us maybe in previous programs, this program was designed to try to help people through the storms they face in life, through the difficult things that come our way. And we hope to be able to encourage people to maintain their faith in God, their trust in God, and hopefully encourage people in those storms that come our way as a part of life. We've had a special treat for the last few programs. We've had some special guests, and again today we have some special guests. I have with me today the author of the book, Giving Him Back to God, Caleb's Journey. It's written by Beth Baker, his mother. And let me tell you real quickly about Caleb. And Caleb passed away about 13 months ago. He lived only 9 years in this world. He was diagnosed at a very early age as having autism at about age 3, and then later was diagnosed as having epilepsy, and later began to have multiple seizures, even hundreds of seizures in a single day. As the seizures took their toll in his young body, he began to have other kinds of health problems, stomach issues, respiratory issues, blood issues as far as blood counts and so forth, and eventually the effect of all of those things in destroying his physical body, and now he rejoices as only we hope to in an eternal home with our Father. And I'm honored today to have some of his family here with us. We have Beth Baker here with us. Thank you, Beth, for being here again. We have her two daughters, Peyton and Camille, and they are Caleb's sisters, and we're very thankful to have them here today. And we also have Beth's sister, Ellen Harris. And part of the reason Ellen is here is because she was such a vital part of the care for Caleb and the support group for their family. And one of the lessons that we learn from Beth's book is really how important that support system is. And Beth, if you'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. You know, anytime a family faces any kind of tragedy or struggle, you can only hope that the family reacts in a positive manner and surrounds that family with love and support and care and uplifting. And we were lucky enough to have that kind of a family that stood by us through the better part of 7 years of struggle. And so I think in the book I tried to show what our family did, and that it took all of them working together. When I was with Caleb, sometimes it took 6 people to do my job at home, but they all got it done. And pulling together is important, and we were just extremely blessed to have such a strong family that and I had to have a sister that was willing to give of her time to assist me and be my other set of hands in taking care of our child.
You mentioned several times in the book the extra hands. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of support from educational people, sure. People in the school system. You had a lot of support from physical therapy and occupational therapy people. Sure. You had mentioned to me Caring Bridge. Yes. Is a website, and you could describe it better than I.
It's basically a forum where you can go on and create a website, and people can read what's happened for the day. If you've had, a serious event, or if you just need to lay some things down on paper or type some things how you're feeling. But it's a means of being able to communicate between you and all those that might be interested in following your child's story. And Ellen always, she was got to be the one who usually got to type, because I wouldn't leave Caleb's side, and so she'd go find a computer somewhere and go, type away and let everybody know. But it kept us from feeling like we were leaving certain people out. Mm-hmm. I mean, we couldn't possibly make all the phone calls that we needed to, and so that was a great tool for us.
Ellen, if you would, and I've said to Beth earlier, writing is very therapeutic.
Sure.
Could you talk about that for a minute, as you were the one who was doing a lot of the posting on Caring Bridge about Caleb and the good and the bad, and it was very interesting. I mean, a lot of it you shared your feelings, not just here are the facts, but you also shared your hurts and so forth.
It is therapeutic, and we would be, most of the journal entries came at the hospital when the storm wasn't just a storm, it was a hurricane, and sometimes those are your best writings at the end of the day.
Sure.
So it was therapeutic, and it would help us kind of get a perspective of everything that's happened, and not only sharing it with the family members who cared and wanted to know, it would also allow them to know specifically what we needed prayed for the day.
Right.
And so it would just kind of be end of the day, and a lot of them were late or early morning hours, where I'd be writing. But it gave me the perspective to go back through the day and see what all had occurred and what we came through, what we made it through. So it was therapeutic for me, and I would encourage her sometimes to write them, just because I knew she would get that therapy that she needed, just as an outlet to let go of some of the emotions.
And to those who are interested, those who would, I don't know, I guess, I don't know how you get on the website, I don't know what the right term is, but people, I mean, to hear directly from Mom makes a difference. But all that news and people who are interested enough to check, and it's caringbridge.com, is that?
It's www.caringbridge.org.
Okay, caringbridge.org. And it's available to anyone?
Sure. With any sort of medical need. There's people on there with infants, there's people on there with elderly.
Well, I didn't know about it till I read about it in your book, and thank you for sharing that with us, because that that support group you've talked about. We mentioned the school and so forth. You mentioned the support through the church and through Caring Bridge, and if I remember right, didn't the golf cart didn't that come about through a connection through Caring Bridge?
Yes, a friend of my mother's that she had worked with for years. Had just shared with, I think, her Bible class about we driving all over the place with our little boy, and because the car ride soothed him so much, and we were trying to save up money for a golf cart, and some of the ladies that she worked with gave us money, and of course we were looking for one, and a gentleman stepped in and said, I have one you can use. And so all summer long we cruised the neighborhood in his golf cart, and it saved us tremendous amounts of money for sure in gasoline, but it was something that could give him a break, and it was also something the girls could do with him, and that was hard to find along the way, things that they could participate in and enjoy with him.
Peyton and Camille, as sisters, I suspect, were there times that you felt kind of left out?
Definitely.
With all the attention going to Caleb, and we joked about just a minute ago about his nicknames, and when did can you remember? See, if he was 3, then how old were you, Peyton, when he was first diagnosed? I
would have been 7.
7?
I would have been 5.
5. Can you remember that?
Sometimes, yeah.
And do you remember what you thought about when you first heard about?
At first, I really didn't know what to think, because I wasn't familiar with it at all.
Sure.
And so once I figured out what it was, then I started to I was kind of scared.
Sure.
But
And of course, I was little at the time, and I was still kind of not real sure, but once I got older, I really understood what was going on. And
Yeah. How much, one of the things I read in the book too, that you kind of got shuffled around, and sometimes it's hard for young people to understand that Mom and Dad are really trying to do what's best for us when we don't understand what's going on. And I appreciated, Beth, you said in the book that you wanted to try to make their lives as normal as possible in a setting that was not normal.
Right. And that was difficult to do. But again, I think they knew, they would be with Aunt Ellen, or they'd be with Aunt Jessica, or they'd be with Nana. I mean, just whomever got to make the hospital room with me, there was going to be 2 left behind that were going to have to pick up the slack and take care of the girls. But you know, because we had a plan in place, I think that made it a little bit easier, maybe, for them to be able to go with others. But you know, we tried to keep their schedule as close to normal as possible.
I wanted to ask you, and I didn't give you a heads up, but I just, what were the feelings that went through your mind if you were out in public somewhere and Caleb had a seizure?
Well, first I automatically thought we need to like get him away from people.
Why?
Because he didn't react well around people, especially when he was seizing. And I even remember when we were at Disney World on our Make-A-Wish trip, and he seized in the parking lot. Then we went into like seizure mode. Like we had our specific jobs, we knew what to do, and then afterwards, then we could kind of relax about it.
Some of them were just sporadic, and they kind of scared me, but I got used to knowing when he had a seizure, and I'd sit on the couch with him and hold his arm, and I'd know how to count him.
One of the things you meant, and I can't remember the term you used, Beth, in the book. This isn't the right word. I can't think of the word you used, but it's like about security for Caleb. That's not the term you used, but I got the impression that meant holding him.
Sure.
That was something that he
expected someone to be with him all the time, and mainly because we did not leave his side. You know, he could seize at any time, and if someone wasn't monitoring him all the time, you know, he could be clustering seizures and no one would be any the wiser of what was going on, and you know, and then we couldn't intervene with medication if necessary. So, you know, it's terrible to say that your kids get used to knowing what a seizure looks like and how to count them and to understand what kind they are. But you know, sometimes I'd be needing to grind medications or something like that, and I'd tell one of the girls, go sit with Bub, and they'd assume the, you know, position and hold his hand or whatever, and you know, I'm up to 22 and I'm going to lose count, you know, and so we'd, you know, mark them down. I'd say start over, you know, and but you know, they are very well educated on what a seizure is. They know what the seizure types are. They know how to respond. They don't get excited. I don't think if they saw someone having a seizure that it would, you know, bother them a whole lot. I mean, I think they'd know what to do and how to respond, but you know, I don't think that they would overreact as some people, you know, do.
Did you ever feel embarrassed?
No.
Good for you. That speaks well to you. That you're not. That you weren't ashamed, and some people would. And I mean, I understand protecting Caleb's privacy when you're in a public setting, but that you were adult enough to deal with it and understand that speaks well to both of you. But for both of you, Peyton, do you have any career aspirations? Do you have any idea what you'd like to do later in life?
I really was thinking about going into like something with special needs, because
I'd be shocked if you didn't.
Because like, I mean, working with Caleb, it really gave me an idea of what I wanted to do, and I seem to be good at it, and I like it a lot. So,
when I was little, I always wanted to be a doctor and just work, and I would be with Mom and I'd grind medicine, and I learned how to do all those kinds of things.
Wow, that's great. I hope both of you are able to do what you dream, and you know, those things change a lot, and between now and 20 years old and so forth, and we never know what life's going to send our way, but you all have you kind of ahead of the curve, so to speak, as far as training and knowledge and so forth, and you know, just the ability to care. Some people are in professions like that are caregiving professions because that's what they can make a living at. And the difference, one of the things I noticed from your book about the people at Vanderbilt in particular, was the caring and the compassion shown toward Caleb and your family. And you may, we talked earlier, you want to talk about Team Caleb a little bit?
Sure. Team Caleb was kind of our overall, I guess that was our catchphrase for everybody who cared. That kind of came about. Ellen called them Team Caleb pretty early on, and then that kind of just stuck. And so we had shirts made up, and we anytime he had a surgery or a procedure, Tuesdays were normally Team Caleb days. So I'd get a message on a Tuesday, I'm in Indonesia and I'm wearing my Team Caleb T-shirt, or I'm in Texas and I wore my Team Caleb T-shirt, or we get a postcard with a picture of somebody wearing their Team Caleb T-shirt, but Team Caleb was, they were our very closest family and friends, and they were people that I've never met and may never meet until we get to heaven. We had churches across the country that would send us cards every week. There's one lady I've never met before. She would send a holiday card for the girls.
With stickers.
With all kinds of stickers, and I know it was handmade, and just little things like that just meant a lot. That sometimes you could be having a terrible day and you go to the mailbox, and then there's somebody else is thinking about you today, or someone else is praying for you today, and that alone could just mean such. It would lift the burden of the day sometimes.
Sure. Just to know somebody cares.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Peyton, what would, as life goes along its way, what do you think would be the biggest or the best lesson that you learned from Caleb?
Probably how to take things and appreciate them. Definitely. Because, we wouldn't see a smile for months. Yeah. And once we saw it, then, we were happy.
Yeah. We talked about, in a previous program, we talked about the little victories that come along and rejoicing in those little victories.
Sure.
Camille, how about you? What'll, when you're old like I am, what will if you have I hope you have a better memory than me, but what kind of things you think will still be there about Caleb?
Kind of the same thing. Just every once in a while I saw him smile and it would always cheer me up. I can remember little things when we were tiny. He'd do huge, crazy things, and I'd always know that he was just messing around. We'd always play. I knew one time when we drove our little Barbie Jeep around, he was always right there.
He was a good friend to her.
Yeah.
Do you ever, did these words ever come out of your mouth? That's not fair. Did it? And I would think you're normal if they did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard for children to, especially when they feel like they're not getting a fair shake. Talk, if you would, too. Remember, I know we talked a little bit about when Caleb was very young, before any of these physical problems began to manifest themselves. I understand Caleb was a little rough.
You have no idea. He was very, very rough as a little kid. Most things that 2-year-olds would do, Caleb wouldn't. He would pull grandfather clocks on top of himself, climb bookshelves, break windows barehanded. He was a roughhouser.
He took one of our old dressers that I still have. Now he pulled it and a TV on top of me, him, and her.
Whoa.
So when I was little, I thought he was like the strongest kid.
I think that qualifies him as the strongest kid in the world.
And do you think this is what it's like to have a little brother?
That's what I thought at first, but then it kind of changed.
Yeah. As you began to learn about the physical problems. The support group that you had, I don't know. I know you all live in the Paducah area. Did I get the impression that Papa and Anna are fairly close?
Yes.
As far as
Proximity,
distance.
Yes. We all, Ellen and I and my mom and dad and my brother John and his wife, we all live within McCracken and Marshall counties. And then a good deal of extended family all live there as well. My other brother David and his wife and their girls, they live in Clarksville, Tennessee. So they're not too far. I mean, you know, it's an hour and a half. So we're all very close, and they come in the weekends a lot, and we're a tight-knit family.
And I don't think we mentioned, I did in the other programs, that you are members of the Maple Hill
Church of Christ.
Church of Christ.
It's actually in the Sharp community.
In the Sharp community.
Yeah, at Marshall County.
As us country folks, we have all these little
communities.
And that's good. Yeah. That's a good thing. It is.
Yes.
If you mentioned in the book, and I think I made a list, and I walked off without it. You mentioned right at the very end of the book, you mentioned some lessons that you learned from Caleb. If you can you remember?
I know some of them. Yes.
And I know Peyton mentioned one about rejoicing in the little things.
Sure.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine.
But you know, and there are other groups that I know that you relied on for information,
sure.
Support, and autism groups and so
sure.
forth.
Sure.
And probably I suspect there are epilepsy support
sure.
groups and so forth.
Epilepsy Foundation. We have a local chapter of Families for Effective Autism Treatment, FEAT. You know, just making connections in the community with people who are walking in similar shoes is important, and it's helpful.
Sure.
And then, yeah, just overall, the whole Vanderbilt community was very good. You know, even in resourcing us to therapies and things like that you know would be helpful to him. And yes, at the end of the book, I talk about not giving up. You know, and did
you ever want to?
No.
Good for you.
No, I can't say
That's
that
rare.
I ever did.
That's rare.
You know, I mean, I will say sometimes I prayed that God would just come on back, you know, and that this would be the last day and we wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. But
I pray that, and I don't have a special needs child.
Right. But you know, I mean, we're told to pray for that. You know,
sure.
We're pray
sure.
for His coming, and so we do. But you know, I wasn't going to give up until then. You know, I was going to keep going, and so I try to encourage families to, regardless of what that is. I mean, it doesn't have to be the death of a child. It doesn't have to be some grave illness. It can just be trials in life, everyday
sure.
trials that you should not give up over. You have to keep on keeping on and not let down your guard. And I talk about fighting for your child, just from the parenting aspect.
Let me touch on that just a second,
sure.
real quickly, because in the medical community, I remember in your book, and I've seen it in my own experience,
mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to be very proactive.
Absolutely.
You have to be very assertive. You know your child better than anybody else in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they have the medical knowledge, they don't know your child.
Right.
And I remember you writing about some people that you got very perturbed with,
mm-hmm.
but you know, again, a mixed blessing.
Sure.
Because it led you to some people who were
absolutely
the medical support that you need, and
absolutely.
everything. In essence, at Vanderbilt, everything you needed
sure.
that was available in medical knowledge was there
sure.
for you.
Sure. A lot of doctors have that fix-it mentality, you know, and I think Ellen and I both became pretty good readers when they would come in, and you know, she would take notes for me while they were, you know, rattling off all their medical jargon, and then we'd get down to the meat of the matter, you know, and talking about that, you know, you had to advocate for your child because who else is going to?
Exactly.
You know, and I expect to advocate for my girls in that same respect, and you know, Ellen advocates for her children, and if you have that mindset that, you know, they're your responsibility, and regardless of what they encounter, they're going to have trials in their lives. They're going to have times when they're going to be met with some terrible things. Mm-hmm. And if you aren't there to advocate for them and to also to be there to lift them up spiritually, then no one else is going to do that.
Right.
You know, that's the responsibility of a family. And as I say, I'm extremely blessed to have the family that I do. And You know, not every day is a wonderful day. Not every family gets along all the time. But at the end of the day, if you're all helping each other walk on the right path and doing what the Lord's will is for you, then you know you're all going to make it through it, regardless of what you encounter.
Ellen, I don't know your husband, but I'm guessing he must be a pretty good guy. I can't even imagine the time that you all have spent together over the last 7 years or so.
Sure.
And you've been sort of a right arm, but you had to have some pretty good support at home as well, because you have a family.
Right, I do. Jason and I were high school sweethearts. So I've known him since I was 16, and he's grown up with Beth being an elder sister. She's bossed him around since we were, yay high. So he fell right into, our family, and that's been a big blessing. He works, and I stay at home. And the people that would take care of Peyton Camille would take care of Zeb when he came along.
Sure.
When Caleb was born, Jason and I were struggling to have children. So he was a surprise to Beth, and I said, that was supposed to be mine.
Right. And I felt that way too. I just,
And now we know, he was supposed to be Beth's. But Jason, he understood when we got a call, and if it was midnight or if it was, in the middle of the day, Caleb's gone to the hospital, my bag was already packed, and he understood that and wanted me to go and did what it needed to be done at home so that I could.
Well, those are pretty remarkable relationships.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people don't have.
Right.
They may have brothers and sisters and husbands and so forth, but a lot of families are not anything close to that as far as being supportive and the value of it. It's been a treat to get to know you all and to have you come and do the program. And I know we had talked about our desire in this program is to try to help people. And I appreciate that you all have been willing to share some very tender things, that you've allowed me to tread on those tender spots, and you've been very kind, and I'm very appreciative of your willingness to share your story about your journey, and we certainly wish God's blessings on all of you as you've blessed our lives. And Caleb was a lucky little fella to have two loving sisters and a mama that's an advocate, and an aunt that treated him as if he were her own, and those are very special relationships. And I really appreciate you being here and being willing to share your story. You've helped others by being here today.
Thank you.
At the close of at the end of the program, you'll see some contact information. Again, we've been talking with Beth Baker and her family about a book about her family's journey as they cared for Caleb. Caleb passed away about 13 months ago. We pray that you'll have a great day.